Lent is often described as a journey, a spiritual journey. Every year, the geography of that spiritual journey is the same. The first Sunday of Lent, we follow Jesus out into the desert, where he fasts for 40 days and 40 nights. He's not giving up chocolate out there. He's not eating for 40 days and 40 nights. And after his fasting, when he's weak physically, he's tempted 3 times. He goes one-on-one with the devil, and he comes out the victor. He wins. Then on the second Sunday of Lent each year, the geography changes, and we follow Jesus not out to the desert, but up a mountain, along with a few of his friends, at the top of a mountain where he is revealed in all his glory. From the desert to the mountaintop, out to the desert facing temptation, and then back to the city, up to the mountaintop, a vision of glory, and then back down the mountain to business as usual. I think the journey of our lives are much like this. We have times in the desert when we starve for understanding, for healing, for companionship, for peace of mind and heart. We live through times of temptation. Sometimes we overcome the temptation. Often we don't. And we have mountaintop experiences as well. Moments of joy, pockets of peace, highs that make the lows more tolerable. Times of insight and understanding and strength. But for the most part, we live our lives somewhere in between the desert and the top of the mountain. It's precisely in between the two where we regularly face our temptations. It's in between the very high and the very low that we hunger for the peace we need to sustain us day to day, in good times and in bad. Lent is a season for all of this. It's a time to confront what tempts us. A time to be honest with ourselves and with God. Honest about the shortcuts we take, the corners we cut, the lies and the half-truths we tell so often that we begin to believe them ourselves. Lent's a season for being honest with ourselves and with God about how often we settle for less than what's true, for less than what's good, less than what's just, less than what's real, less than what's pure, less than what's fair. Lent is a season for being honest about how often we hold back when we have so much to give. How often we fail to walk with Jesus and follow him, whether he's heading for the desert or up to the mountaintop. Lent comes to help us change, to change our hearts and to change our ways. And in these 40 days, Jesus wants to take each of us both out to the desert and to the mountaintop. In the desert, he invites us to fast, that is, to find a way to experience hunger or thirst and the emptiness that each of those brings, to let go for a season, for 40 days, to let go some food, some beverage, some pleasure, some creature comfort, until we feel the difference its absence makes in our lives, until we know an emptiness inside that longs to be filled with something more satisfying, more lasting, and more nourishing than whatever it was that we gave up. In that Lenten desert, Jesus asks us to look at the temptations in our lives and to see what changes we might need to make to better face those temptations. But in Lent, Jesus also wants us to hike up that mountain with him. He wants to take us to a place where we will get to know him better, especially in prayer. A place where we might see him as we've never seen him before. Whether you're 15 years old or 85 years old, this Lent, Jesus has more of himself to reveal to you and to me than ever he has before. He wants to take us to a place where we can experience him not from some distance, but in the light, up close, with all he has to offer us. He brings us to the mountaintop of prayer to give us just a glimpse of the fullness of his love that can change us. And there's the rub. In this season we call Lent, Jesus wants to change you. Jesus wants to change me. And if he does, if we let him do that, if we render ourselves vulnerable to what he would change in my life and yours, then things will be different. They will not be like they were before. And that can scare us. As unhappy with many aspects of my life as I might be, I can still be very slow, even afraid to change, to let go what I'm accustomed to, what I'm used to, what I hang on to, what makes me comfortable, what gives me pleasure. Jesus wants to touch our lives, every one of us, this Lent. He invites each of us to spend some time with him in the desert and to walk up that mountain with him. And he promises to touch each of us with his presence, his mercy, his peace, and to change our hearts and our lives where they need to be changed. So, how will fasting this Lent help us discover what we need to fill and satisfy the deepest hungers of our hearts, the real hungers of the human heart? How will our prayer this Lent open our eyes to see more clearly how close Jesus is to us, right by our side? And how will serving those in need change our lives? Change them until our own needs become second to the needs of those who want for so much. Jesus climbed up that mountain, but eventually, as St. Paul predicted here in the second reading today, Jesus climbed the mountain of the cross for us. And there, in the desert of his thirst and suffering, there came forth from his side a river of mercy to wash our sins away, to change us. As he offered his life for us on the mountain of the cross, so he offers it for us on this altar this afternoon, the table where we will be nourished and strengthened to walk with him through these 40 days, to let him change our lives with his love.